coming after him. Like, Let's fucking go. This is the Outlaw Apostle Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Neff. I'm the fucking guy, and we are live once again on a Wednesday morning. Along with me in this little home studio, new digs are being created and made as we speak. So we can look forward to that here in the very near future as we grow. And the person doing all that work is Leo. Leo, how are you, man?
I'm doing pretty good, man. It's a beautiful day today.
It's a beautiful day.
We've had a
couple.
That's
We've had a couple of cloudy days,
Oh, man,
which I know you
I
native
love 'em.
people love.
No,
Yeah.
it's great to, especially because it was so hot recently, and I felt because I went to go help my dad with some construction these
Mhm.
past few days,
Mhm.
and it was nice to have some clouds and it not be super hot. So it was nice. It was
With
nice.
all the construction around here, I'm sure all of those guys felt that way.
Whew. Yeah, my dad was like, "It's a great day today." I'm over here sweating like a motherfucker.
I can tell you, I've never been anywhere else in the country where I have seen this much construction of
Everywhere.
everything, but specifically what's off the hook right now is apartment housing. Insane. Over by my friend's place in Gilbert, you know, they're just and they're massive. Like we didn't have like
tall apartment buildings.
we didn't have that in Toledo, really. You know, they built some new ones downtown along the river. I never got to go inside or see any of them. That would have been kind of cool location, but not necessarily on the east side, which they were. But the fact that they were downtown and they were nice, a big group, but nothing like we have here. It's not even close. And I haven't seen that anywhere I've went. And I've been around, you know,
To a few different
traveling.
places,
I've been
yeah.
traveling a little bit. At least people think I have. They tell me, so I must be. I don't even know, but they tell me. Oh
No,
God,
but there is definitely a lot of construction in Arizona. I don't know, like you said, like I'm not sure what it is like in other states, because I don't get to travel that often. But it does when I do go to other states, it does seem like they aren't on like building as many buildings as in
Yes.
Arizona. I feel like Arizona is just being built so quick.
yeah,
So
it
quick.
is, and it's interesting because I'm in these different groups now, and in the Go Gilbert group, and listening to people complain and bitch and about traffic and about
It is pretty bad. I ain't gonna lie.
but in comparison to other places and that they do try to keep up with it here and expand,
Gotcha.
I think Arizona does an absolutely wonderful job at that. Although I will say, of the 3 years that I've been here now, this is the most cones I've ever seen in the summer,
God.
more than the last 2 years, don't you think?
I don't know. For me, it's just a big old headache. Anytime I see any cones, it's a big headache. Like especially was it like down Highway and everything.
Yeah.
Like, for the oh man, it's been a headache for sure.
But see, the thing is, they move here.
Yeah.
They actually finished the project here. You go back to Ohio and Michigan, that
The
shit's
cones
there
stay
for
weeks.
years. Years. Oh, there's going to be an exit here in 2030.
But it will be there.
It will
Just
be
give it
there.
some time.
Maybe. It will be there. It's just crazy. Crazy. So some of the big thing that broke over the weekend was the release by Tulsi Gabbard of files, information, more is coming. And this was investigated by the Senate. They came to a conclusion that no one believed. It's kind of like coming to a conclusion that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. It's like nobody believed it, There was no evidence, no evidence that Russia had interfered with the 2016 election in any way that was significant. And the intelligence agencies were about to like really come out with that information. And before they did, it got thrown in the trash, basically. Let's put it that way. They threw it in the trash, and we're told to basically rework that information. All around the time leading up to when Trump is going to be inaugurated.
Okay.
So this is, in the January time frame
Gotcha.
of Trump being, becoming president. So he's starting to get information, briefings and stuff like that too.
Gotcha.
They're starting to do that. And one of the things they did was they leaked information. Some of these intelligence folks leaked information to the media. The media reported it, and then the intelligence agencies used that as proof. They used that as proof when they went for a FISA warrant that, hey, this was in the Wall Street, or the Washington Journal, Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal, and they put that in as information and evidence to the judge for the FISA warrant. And they also included new information that was the Steele dossier, which at that point they knew was fake. It was fake and paid for. This is not, the things I'm talking about right now are not controversial. They're not disputed. Like, these are literal facts. You can overlook facts if someone wants to do that, but these are facts. The Steele dossier was garbage and should never have been used, and many of them have said so since then, and that they knew it, and then they also signed off on these FISA warrants, knowing that a big part of being able to get that warrant was the use of including that information that they knew was false. You're not supposed to do that, dude. And the thing, if you can do that to a president, which they did, what can they do to us? That's why it's a big deal. And nobody has to believe me if they don't want to. But me personally, I don't want that to ever happen to a Democratic president. I think that's the most horrendous thing you could possibly do. And it's why they don't understand, maybe the general public doesn't understand, but it's why conservatives and the MAGA movement don't give a shit about January 6th like they do. We don't condone the violence that came about that day, but we don't believe it was a coup. But what I do believe was a coup and trying to secretly unseat the president of the United States is the plan they put in place that began with Obama and continued with the different intelligence agencies and throughout the president's term and going after him. And they did that literally nonstop. I mean, it was amazing that he got anything done, and he did get some stuff done his first term when he had no support from Republicans, and almost right off the bat, the Democrats were able to, jam up the wheels, make it super, super difficult because of these investigations, which were just, flat out lies. You might have remembered the one that, that Trump was in Russia and he had some horse piss on a bed or piss on him. Oh yeah, there's like a whole urination thing, dude.
I don't remember that at all.
Okay, yeah. Well, you're younger and just, at that time, what, 9 years ago, how old were you?
9 years ago, I was just turning 17?
17.
Yeah.
Most 17-year-olds aren't really interested in international and national politics.
No.
Maybe a little bit, but not a lot.
Surface
You know what I mean?
politics. Not-
Surface.
yeah,
No.
exactly.
Fuck no, dude. You're trying to like maintain your cool, get a date, get laid.
Exactly. Got more important things to deal with.
There's more important things. You're growing up, man. It's totally understandable. But that's the kind of shit that they put out about the president that was just not true. That no evidence whatsoever, but kept repeating over and over and over again. It got to be the point of, just being ridiculous. And they're gonna make an excuse no matter what. The excuses are gonna be made no matter what. As far as, oh, this is just to deflect from Epstein. The Epstein thing, as much as President Trump said he would like for it to go away, it hasn't gone away. And it's not because of the Democrats. The Democrats didn't care about any of this stuff. They didn't care about pedos. They didn't care about children until now. Now they've had their come to Jesus moment, and they somehow care about pedos and young girls being sex trafficked. And I can say this with full confidence, knowing that they incentivized coming to the border and crossing the border. There were incentives for people to do so, and they wanted them to do so, knowing in that process that the cartel was bringing, it was almost as big a business as the drug business. Stealing children, taking children, and bringing them across the border. Along with the fact that many of these young girls, 12 years old, coming through the country in these big caravans were being raped along the way. They didn't care about that. They just wanted them to cross. They just didn't care. If they cared, then they would have done something about it, like help close the border. And there's no argument. You realize that, President Trump was criticized the year before the election because they were about to pass a new immigration law, and some Republicans were on board, and Trump was like, nah, you're not doing this. And, he just wanted a campaign issue. A part of that rule, that law, would have allowed at least, I saw yesterday 5,000, but I don't think it was that many. I thought it was somewhere around 2,000 or so. 2,000 to 3,000 people would be able to cross before they would implement other rules to make it slow down. And that was every day, 2,000 to 3,000 a day. Dude, we only had 8,000 encounters last month. We had 0 that were paroled and released into the country. We had 6,000 apprehensions. All of these numbers are like the lowest that they've ever been. And the one numbers that were presented by the CBP, it was the lowest number since 2003, because that's when they started keeping track of that number. That's how big a deal and big a difference that this was. That's going back to Bush 2. That's going back a minute in all of this. It's pretty phenomenal that without any legislation at all, again, let's divide the immigration up into 2 different things. 1, border crossings, and then 2, deportations. And you might like one and not like the other, or you might like them both, or you might not like both of them. But for most people are, at least according to the latest polls, are on board for the first one. At least they're on board for the border patrol and not crossing the border. And then it's mixed now, and even a little bit on the Republican side, people not liking the whole, way some things are being handled with the deportations. But again, the same people that are complaining about detention center in Florida, it's the same motherfucking people that never said a word when Biden had immigrants in cages here in Arizona and had the people sitting on rocks. That was reported. I pulled up an article, not even from the U.S., like the Daily Mail. So I'm not pulling up Fox News and throwing this at you. This is out there for anybody to dig up. This was the Daily Mail. So nobody said shit when it was Biden doing that. And, you know, it's not unusual. I don't know. Have you ever been in a jail cell for a minute?
A few times, yes.
Okay, that's good. I didn't know. We'll have to talk about that. Okay, where's the water? Where's the sink for drinking water?
Attached to the toilet.
It's attached to the toilet, right?
Yeah.
So when they say at these detention camps that they're attached like that the water's just, and they act like it's the most horrible thing in the world. It's in every fucking jail across the entire country, right? Like, I mean, that's how they do it in Ohio. And I've also been into one here in Arizona. So I can tell you it's the same in Arizona too. Michigan. Those are my three. But yeah, it's attached. It's attached. And, you know, you might be in a cell and have to, you know, relieve yourself. There might be somebody else in there. That's totally possible. It just is how it is, man. Like, that's not unusual. And you want to talk about, and the food sucks? They fed us, you know, like the food, Arizona, worst ever, man. Maricopa County, dude. It was horrendous. You got this hard bun and you got water. You didn't even get fake Kool-Aid, but it was water. And this bun, and you got peanut butter. I don't even know if you got jelly. I don't know. You're supposed to make your own peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And you'd get that a couple meals in a row. Because I never made it all the way to the jail. That was processing. I got released.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? And later on, just so you know, I'm not like some horrible dude. The charges were dropped because they had no case. The day before we were to go to trial, because I didn't accept any type of plea deal. I said, we're going to trial. And they're like, oh, okay, well, we don't want to go to trial. We're just going to drop this because it's going to be, you know.
A lot easier that way.
A lot easier on them. They wouldn't look stupid. But, but yeah, it was a couple meals like that. It was not good, dude. There's nothing good about it. There was nothing nutritious about it. And that's how we're treating our own people, you know, and there might be, you know, obviously illegal immigrants in the jails across the country as well. But I mean, we're treating U.S. citizens that way. It's not new. Like, you're not getting a gourmet fucking meal at these places. It's just not a thing. I don't know what they're getting down there, but, you know, I remember some years ago, we used to get like the watered down Kool-Aid. So literally it was almost like half. Like you take a gallon of normal Kool-Aid and add a gallon of water to it and then give it to people.
Gotcha.
That's what it was like. Just that faint taste of Kool-Aid enough to be like, fuck. And probably a bologna sandwich or something stupid. And some beans you didn't want to eat.
Just a bunch of like dog food, basically.
Yeah,
like,
and you didn't throw anything away because somebody wanted it. So this shitty food that they're complaining about, somebody else wants it, and that's what people said. Some people said when they, some congressmen have toured it, and people were saying how bad the food is. They're like, well, how bad can it be? The dude asked for a second sandwich. But truth is, it's not good. That's the truth. It's not good. but we're not like putting worms in it. We're not, these people are not being treated maliciously. It's just not a thing. But it just keeps being lied about and over and over and over again. And people repeat it. And then you have a bunch of misinformation out there, and people who are misinformed and have opinions about it that aren't really great opinions, but I feel for them because it is their opinion, but it's an opinion based on not having enough accurate information. Because it didn't matter. They were going to say everything bad about this that they possibly could. But comparing it to concentration camps, nobody's being killed. Nobody is being fed to the alligators. It's not a thing. We are not feeding illegal immigrants, to alligators. It's not happening. Nobody can prove that it is. And do you know how ignorant that would be?
To believe that they would feed them to alligators?
Well, to do it, to actually do it. Like, hey, let's just do one for fun and see.
You know, I wouldn't say they wouldn't do it. Because I mean, if someone gets eaten by an alligator,
no one has. But the way somebody would get eaten by an alligator is they have to escape. So if they escape, then there is the potential. That is the reason they built that there. Is they thought for security purposes there'd be a little safe, that people are going to be less likely to try to escape because of the environment, because of the snakes and the alligators. So it is about intimidation, 100%. But nobody's like, hey, I'm going to open the door for you. You want to go? Because they want to watch or something. Like,
I could definitely see someone doing that. I could 100%.
All right, but it hasn't
especially in Florida.
It hasn't happened yet.
I mean, that we know of.
That we know of. Bubba has not done that. It's not a thing. But real concentration camps killed millions of people. Millions. This is not what this is, and it's not fair to compare it to, the genocide of millions of people. People are being sent home. That's what's being done. And yes, some people are being picked up that didn't recently rape someone, but they were in the area of someone who did commit a crime like that, and they got swept up in it too. But that was all told to everyone that's how that was going to work. It just was. So I kind of got off a little bit into that from the treason. And I've really felt like this is me personally, I really felt like I was disappointed. I kept hoping that people would take what was going on seriously. I did not live through Watergate. I was a very young child during Watergate. I was born in 1968. But I grew up knowing how big of a deal Watergate was. And then when I was old enough to learn about Watergate and what happened, I did. I was interested in that. Just like we were talking a minute ago, most young people weren't interested in politics, but I was. As a teenager, I was interested in that. I followed Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon as well. I love that kind of history. I like real stuff, so I like that kind of thing. Documentaries, biographies, books, just for that whole purpose. And it was a big deal. It was dumb what they did. The cover-up was even dumber. But I believe that the things that were going on with Hillary Clinton and her emails And then after that, this whole thing that happened with Trump and how they came after him, that I believed all that was no less serious than what happened during Watergate. No less serious. And in fact, I thought maybe it was even more serious. I really, really thought it was a big deal. But people didn't treat it like one anymore. And that really bothered me. We were hoping that people would be held accountable because it's just not okay. But they weren't. And I don't know if they'll be held accountable now. I don't have a lot of faith that people will be held accountable on either side because it's just not something that's done very often. Trump had an opportunity. He could have really gone after Hillary during his first term, and he didn't do it. Even he backed up because he said it wouldn't be good for the country. And maybe he's right about that. But they've had no qualms about trying to go after him in every single way possible. And that's why I believe that, if there was something in the Epstein files that Trump wouldn't want people to see, it would have been released. Because they've literally tried every single thing to bring this man down. Everything. Including doing illegal shit and lying about it because he's Hitler, and it's okay to do illegal shit to bring Hitler down. That's the whole thing.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah,
real quick?
please.
Because I've seen a few videos of like different people kind of like looking into the whole Epstein thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of like past evidence of Epstein and Trump being very, very close to each other. And now that the whole situation is going down, he's claiming that he was like not even close to Epstein at all. There's a lot of like evidence saying that from what I can put together,
sure.
It seems like he doesn't want the list out because he understands that he would, in some way, shape, or form, be held accountable for something.
Well,
what that would be,
right.
I'm not sure, but that's what I'm kind
here's
of
here's what we do know that I'm going to add to that.
Okay.
So it's a handful of times, like I've mentioned before, that he was close enough to Epstein that he flew on his plane.
There's like, so for again,
and then I'm just talking about the plane right now. The plane.
Okay.
And then yes, social parties and stuff. They were all there, dude. Like everybody was there.
Yes, but Trump and Epstein both said they were like best friends almost.
Okay,
like the closest friends.
Right? Okay, but people will say that, but that's prior to like 2003, I believe.
But was that not like?
Well, it was after that Trump cut all ties with him and then kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago.
Okay.
So prior to that, they were in the same places together. If he had a party and invited him, Trump was probably there, as well as Chuck Schumer, as well as Hillary Clinton. Everybody was there. You know what I'm saying?
I forget who.
Bill Clinton. If you actually look, there's as many and actually more pictures. And Clinton flew with him more times than Trump did. Now, the left will say, "Oh, we don't care if Clinton did something wrong. We want him taken too." Look, I feel the same way. Like I'm not. That's not something I would forgive Trump of if he actually did. If there was evidence that showed that he slept with underage girls.
But isn't that the whole concept of why people are saying that that's why they're not releasing the files, is because because like that's the biggest thing that they were saying is like,
I understand
the reason the list hasn't been released is because it's used for blackmail. So if it's released, then it can no longer be used for blackmail.
Okay, then why didn't the Democrats use it for blackmail against Trump?
No. That's the whole thing. Is there is no blackmail for one side or the other. It's more of like whoever is holding on or whoever has the power to blackmail. It's both on the Republican and Democrat side. I forget who it was. I think it was like Epstein's brother or something like that. They interviewed him and they said, if I really wanted to, I could ruin both the Democrats and Republican Party. Like there is no side to the whole Epstein list. Like it's not a Republican or a Democratic thing. It's just a list with people on it that just happen to be either on the Republican or
So
Democratic side.
So then we have to believe that Democrats before.
Because I
right,
believe
no,
there's more Democrats than
right,
Republicans.
but they didn't want to release it to get Trump because there were too many of their own people on their own side.
I don't think this has anything to do with Trump specifically. I think Trump is involved in some way, shape, or form, and because Trump is currently the president, then that's why people are focusing more towards Trump. But I think like whether we had a completely different president right now, I think he would still be on that list either way in this scenario, at least.
Well, but there's never been evidence presented that he was ever on any kind of list other than the flight logs that were released.
Yeah, but no one really understands who, like, because we don't have that list hasn't been released, so we don't know exactly.
But they're saying there is no list like that.
Now they're saying that.
I don't think there was a list that was made by Epstein.
But
I think there's what I believe is what I said before. I believe that as an investigator, you should be able to put together a list of who was Jeffrey Epstein's clients, or who did he get these girls for?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, there was an FBI raid in his mansion.
Yes.
And in that mansion, they found files for some, not necessarily like, oh, this person, this activity, this person, this activity, but they did find a bunch of documents. And then ever since now, they're saying that those documents are irrelevant, basically.
Well, here's the thing. Now we're getting like deep into the weeds, and you need somebody who's way better at that than me.
I can pull up the videos.
And I can do the same as well. I'm just saying, me repeating this goes much, much deeper. And what I understand from listening to those people, a lot of it has to do with Jeffrey Epstein was protected during his first trial, which was around 2006.
Okay.
So the raid that you're talking about that was done back then, that the warrant was very limited in scope.
Okay.
So maybe there was evidence there, but they weren't allowed to take it. What evidence they were allowed to take was a very, very concise list. So, yeah.
But that doesn't sound like a little weird to you? That there is
it is weird.
There's a bunch of
but
stuff,
that means
but they can't use it? Like,
right? No. But they didn't take it. But yeah, dude, I 100% agree with that. That is weird.
To me.
It is sketchy. That's what people are saying, is that why was he protected? Who sent the order down to say you can do this and take him like this, but you can't do this against him? You know, was he not was he an informant for intelligence agencies and stuff like that?
That's what I've heard the most.
And I understand and I agree with that.
So that's why, like,
but that's why there may have been information that would be really helpful today, and there probably was, but nobody got their hands on it because they weren't allowed to get it at that time. So does that make sense?
No, I get that. So in that scenario, is like all that information destroyed? Like that doesn't.
Yeah. But they never had the evidence to destroy it. So who would then destroy it?
Yeah, but
Epstein himself.
I don't.
Why wouldn't he destroy it after going through all that?
Because he got in trouble no matter what. He's gonna go down no matter what.
But that was the first time.
Yeah.
There were two separate times.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Why after the first time would he not?
Because
he was bold enough.
Because he gets the protection, quote unquote, the protection that he would need if he's able to produce, if he's able to give that destroyed, quote unquote, evidence to people that can use it. He could benefit from staying out of jail or getting his benefits or whatever. And then
that's why we want as much information as possible. And one step in the right direction is the grand jury testimony.
Okay.
So when a prosecutor wants to, I've been indicted, by the way. So when a prosecutor, what a prosecutor does is he goes before a jury and presents evidence, and the jury decides if there's enough there to at least have a trial.
Yes.
It's not saying you're guilty,
Yep.
but we should go a little further than this,
a little bit more,
and
yeah,
not
yeah,
like, oh, this is bullshit. You need to let this go. And it's not hard for a prosecutor to get to sway the jury,
Yeah.
because there's no defense attorney in there.
Yeah.
And including the defendant, me, you're not in there. We don't get to dispute anything. We don't get to contribute any information for them to make that decision.
The decision of
right?
whether or not.
Yeah. And so then that grand jury testimony that's given
Mhm.
is sealed almost 100% of the time.
Okay.
Very rarely is it ever released, but sometimes it will be due to the greater need for the public to know. I think that's how they base their decision, as best as I understand it.
Gotcha.
And so there is grand jury testimony that had been sealed by the judge, and that's one thing that they just asked the judge to release. Now, the judge can decide not to,
Gotcha.
okay?
Okay.
Or he can decide to do that. I don't know if there's a list in the grand jury testimony, but it would seem that grand jury testimony would be pretty important. And it's not just a list. We want all of the information. We just don't trust our government and the media so much that we don't want somebody to tell us what to think. We want to see it for ourselves and then judge.
Fair.
Is that right? I mean, that's
fair.
what I do. That's what you do. But again, I think the one side is disingenuous. They never wanted this information before. And we have wanted this information before. And I don't know. I can't imagine that. I don't know what's going to happen. I honestly don't. I hope that we continue to work towards that.
Mhm.
I think it's important, but I think there's a lot of important things going on right now. But you could pull up montages
Mhm.
of President Biden. They referred him to him as a pedo as well.
I wouldn't be surprised, to
Right.
be honest with you.
But I don't like people calling any president things like that. With you, if you want to call them after that, they should at least be charged.
Mhm.
And I'd prefer we wait to call them that until after they're convicted.
But it's
But at
hard
least
to
if they're
do
charged.
I was about to say,
But
it's-
just in general beforehand,
Yeah.
that nobody is charged with anything, and then you're making serious allegations.
Mhm.
Because to me, that's right up there with murder.
I
Okay,
think
to me, most people
honestly,
are.
a little worse than murder. to be
Exactly. So
honest
at
with
least
you.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Most people equate it as that bad of a thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not just going to go around calling somebody a murderer. Well, I guess we did Hillary. We joked about her suiciding people, but damn, dude, do you know anybody, friend, family, somebody you heard about that's known more people that were in their circle that committed suicide than Hillary Clinton? Nobody. It's like, holy shit, dude. But anyways, back to Biden. Dude, we have real videos
Mhm.
of that are creepy as fuck, dude. And if it was a family member, somebody would be pulling that old dude aside, be like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Mhm.
Or, "Why are you touching my daughter's hair?" You're leaning over some,
But
like
it's-
the
I-
way he touched their bodies
Yeah.
and arms.
No, I get
and
that.
it's weird,
For sure.
man.
No, I
And
agree.
then we can what if we pulled up on Grok? What does Grok say? There was something in what was controversial in Joe Biden's daughter's diary. What was controversial in Joe Biden's daughter's diary?
Oh, let me make sure everyone can see this.
Because did she make that he slept with her or something, or was in the same bed at a certain age? There was something that was in the diary. The controversy surrounding Ashley Biden's diary stems from its theft and subsequent handling by individuals and organizations. In 2020, Ashley Biden, daughter of President Joe Biden, left her diary and other personal items in a Delray Beach, Florida home while moving out. Amy Harris, who later moved into the same space, found the diary and with Robert Kurlander attempted to sell it. They first approached Donald Trump's 2020 campaign, which declined, and advised them to turn it over to the FBI. Instead, they sold it to Project Veritas, a conservative group known for its undercover operations, for $40,000, $20,000 each. Project Veritas did not publish the diary, citing inability to verify its authenticity. It was leaked to the national file. The diary's contents, particularly a passage where Ashley Biden reflects on childhood memories and mentions showers with my dad, probably not appropriate, her words, in the context of her addiction and recovery and early sexual awareness, sparked significant controversy. Showering with her dad. And that to me is no different than they're trying to say that President Trump wrote some passage on a birthday card to Jeffrey Epstein. And if you listen to the words that they're trying to attribute to President Trump, they're not words he uses. We know how he talks.
Yeah, but
you know what I mean?
Wouldn't you assume that you're going to talk differently in front of millions compared to like a close friend? Like, wouldn't you talk differently in a note or a text message than you would publicly?
Yeah, but in writing and anything, there were people that did like a deep search. Remember, because how we said the internet is crazy.
I haven't even heard of this birthday card that you're referring to.
This happened too. That nowhere has anybody found the use of, I can't even remember what the word is at the moment. But
like whatever word, but he wouldn't
like,
have never use
like,
that word.
Most people wouldn't use the word. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
And it almost sounded like poetic. And it's like, and even, so maybe if it wasn't Trump's words, maybe if it was the words of a poet or another writer, and I don't think it was, nobody has said that was originally written by someone else. And
that's my other thing that I was going to say.
Yeah.
Someone else.
Nobody has said that. They would have said that already. But even in the case that it was, somebody who does that once would do that more than once. Use like I use sometimes lines from movies.
Yeah.
When you're fucking around with your friends and stuff like that,
yeah.
you know, you'll throw lines from movies out. Well, somebody who does that. Throws it out there. Even if it's only occasional, you do it.
Yeah.
You're not just going to do it as a one-off, one time in your whole adult history. That's not normal like that. But I mean, this, and then like I said, along with the other instances that we have on videotape, you know, and pretty much, you know, there's another woman making an accusation now that nobody believed or wanted before, and now this woman's coming back out of the woodwork 30 years ago, not attractive. Dude, Trump was around and had, do I believed, you know, when he's in his, you know, 30s, especially 35 to 40, that he loved and liked, you know, hot 23, 24-year-old model women? Fuck yeah. Dude, I got one of my best friends likes that, or did. You know, he's older now. He's older like me, and finally he's dating women in their 30s now, late 30s now. I'm like, good move. But my friend has never been with an 18-year-old, I mean, as an adult,
older
you know,
gentleman,
as an older gentleman, let alone someone that was underage.
No, I get
You know what I mean?
I get you.
But 22, 23, you know, especially when you're 35 to 40, you can't say it's not a thing. It's no different than a 60-year-old guy going after a 30 to 35-year-old that's wealthy, and you're like, oh, he's ugly. He must have money, right? We see it all, especially here. We see it all the time here in Scottsdale, right?
Yeah.
It's not uncommon.
A lot more common than it's not.
It's a lot more common here. Look, it happened even in Toledo, Ohio. Not to the extent it did here, but, you know, everybody knows that that's a thing. And, yeah, I believe he liked that. And I believe maybe, you know, in their initial relationship, you know, Epstein did too. Younger girls, now, when things, you know, went bad, I mean, Trump severed ties and kicked him out. I mean, this is supposed to be an accurate story. Nobody has disputed the truth of the story. Okay, they just bring up other stuff. The fact that that Jeffrey Epstein acted inappropriately at Mar-a-Lago towards girls that were under the age of 18. And that's why he was kicked out. And that their relationship ended at that.
Could I offer
whatever the
something really
relationship.
quickly?
Yeah, of course.
There's a gentleman that he's pretty much known for being a news kind of person in the YouTube space. His name's CoffeeZilla. I'm not sure if you've heard of him before. But he's made a few like 10-minute videos about the whole situation that would explain the way I kind of feel about a lot of certain, why I feel the skepticism. Would you be willing to react to some of those videos?
Of course.
You want to do one right now?
You want to do one right now?
Yeah, we can. Yeah,
Do it, man.
Let's do it.
Let's go. I'm all about that, man.
Yeah, because
I don't have a problem with that.
This guy is very, at least he's very well put together and like
Because,
the way he
I
describes
mean,
stuff.
look, we should all be skeptical.
100%.
You know what I mean? We should all be skeptical. But here's the thing to keep in mind, too.
Okay.
When you consider everything else, it was not so much Trump, okay?
Okay.
Because it seems like I was maybe a little wrong. And here's what I was wrong about.
Okay.
Trump talked about transparency during his campaign.
Yes, he did.
Okay. What he didn't talk about was releasing the Epstein files.
But wasn't that like one of the biggest like driving points?
We're wrong. We're wrong. It was all these other things. Okay. And it was us wanting him to add that and include that. And then it was even people around him, people in his administration. And Patrick Bet-David has been talking about this, like how he would be upset if I worked for him and I made a promise on his behalf that he didn't make.
Gotcha.
So if I said, you know, we're gonna release this information and Patrick's gonna release this information and authorize the release of it, but I never talked to Patrick about it, and Patrick never came to me and said for me to say that, and I said it anyways.
Gotcha.
So that it's more coming out from other people. But I'm just saying, so this has all gained renewed legs, the Epstein files, in the since Trump became president.
Yeah.
And people like me hoping, well, now let's get everything. Let's get that. Let's get the Kennedy files. You know, did you even know that, you know, remember there was talk about the documents and things being released regarding Martin Luther King?
Yes.
Okay, it was talked about, right?
They released it, didn't they?
They just released it.
In the
last week. In the last week, they just did it.
What? No, I remember that being done a few. Is it just
I don't know if they released something prior to this, but they just released more documents related to that just in this past week.
Gotcha. Oh, wow.
Okay, but that was talked about, and it's being done. Now, I thought it was going to happen faster, but I can understand maybe they wanted to, I don't know if they ran anything by the family or I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, but a little bit of difference is going to be made because he's, you know, a cultural icon and, you know, he's great American patriot. I don't know how else to other label it.
No, I get you.
So, yeah, that was done. That was said. There was nobody really clamoring for that stuff prior to this, other than occasionally where people are saying, it's been 30 years. Are we ever going to find out what really happened? Are we ever going to find out if there was a second shooter and shit like that? Like, come on, man. Like that. So, but I'm just saying that, so and it was Trump's people that did this, brought the attention back around, and it was the MAGA base, which I'm a part of, the supporters that wanted this information. And like I said, it's just within so these people that are clamoring for it, as far as Democrats go, that wasn't a thing. They never cared about it. But now that they think that it's out there and they think they might have an issue where they can attack Trump with it and attract MAGA supporters, and this might be the thing, because they've been trying to kill this guy off or get him out of the White House by any means necessary, for 10 years. Yeah. So, like, they think this might be it. They're not taking on this issue because they care about kids or sex trafficking.
You don't think so?
Not the Democrats, no, because they would have brought it up before. It would have been but we brought it up. Okay, we brought it up.
But isn't that go back to the point I was saying earlier, where the Epstein list doesn't necessarily fall between like Trump specifically or whatever? Like it both Democrats and Republicans are like. A lot of them
are on it, but not both wanted it released.
Correct.
That information released. We have always wanted the information released. The Democrats have not always wanted this information released.
That's what one of these videos kind of explains a little bit more into. I'd really love.
All right, yeah, let's do that. Let's do whichever one you like the best. Hit it.
So there's two I personally would recommend watching. This is the first one.
All right.
So let's give it a. I believe this one goes over their relationship a little bit more, because this is the thing that I kind of like. There's a lot of back and forth, right? Like, what was Trump's relationship with Epstein, right? Was it as close as it actually was that people saying, or is it like you explained where they're more like business partners and they're in the same scene?
They weren't business partners, but social acquaintances.
Yeah.
Yeah, because nobody knows what he did to make the money.
Exactly. So that's
we know he was given money. Mm-hmm. We know who gave him a lot of the money. But we don't know
what exactly, where it came from and stuff like that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
No, but I'm definitely very interested to hear your take on this.
Yeah,
so,
let's roll this.
I'm actually going to record this real quick. Sorry. Give me one extra second here. Just going to record it just for the funsies. All right.
Is he CoffeeZilla or Voidzilla?
So his name is CoffeeZilla. Voidzilla is just his second channel that he.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But his name is CoffeeZilla.
Okay.
What did I just do?
You left the page.
Oh. let's go back. All right. There we go.
There we go. All right.
All right.
Fire him up.
Let's do it.
Voidzilla.
Cover up of my lifetime, the Epstein case. The reason I'm talking about it so much is because if you can get away with this, you really can get away with anything. If the government can tell people to not believe what they just said a few months ago and have everyone be fine with that, that's just a level of gaslighting that I refuse to be a part of. Never forget, they just promised us names in the release of the Epstein files.
Breaking news right now, you're going to see some Epstein information being released.
What kind?
A lot of flight logs, a lot of names, a lot of information.
But in this case, in Epstein's case, it is incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
Is it going to be shocking?
I don't see how it's not shocking.
Okay,
that
let's just stop there.
Were so many.
Okay. At the point that they're doing this, and I don't know why the Trump people, Pam Bondi and Haba, and she's in the news too here the last day or two. I don't know why they're talking about the flight logs being released like they hadn't been released. That was one of the complaints, was that the stuff that they did release recently was stuff that already had been released. So this phase one that they were talking about was stuff that was already given, already done before.
Gotcha.
So why are they talking about this? Like, who's going to be on the flight log? Because I don't hear her using the words, either one of them using the words additional flight logs. New flight logs were discovered, a secret set of flight logs, whatever. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
She's just saying flight logs. Well, we had flight logs. What's the difference now?
Individuals that were hidden and kept secret and not been held accountable.
Yeah, well, apparently there are no names to be given, no list, no blackmail. Epstein has now been pushed as a lone trafficker. It's the lone trafficker theory, guys. Essentially, the government's memo that they just released contradicts everything we've seen before and now basically implies that Epstein was trafficking to himself and Ghislaine Maxwell was trafficking to Epstein, and there was no other blackmail or trafficking going on. That's what this memo essentially implies. His wealth and his power then would be just from his skill as a New York financier.
I'm talking about Jeff Epstein, the New York financier.
Basically, he was the world's greatest tax advisor by day and the world's greatest trafficker at night to himself. And the rich and powerful people who all flocked to him and to his island had no idea of this double life. That really is kind of the heart of the modern theory, is that just all Epstein by himself, and then his friends just were there for his tax advice, despite not being a tax professional or a lawyer. Not only that, another huge revelation is the fact that really the government has increased the number of victims and decreased the number of perpetrators, right? We had the idea that there were these other perpetrators for a while, that they were just redacted because the government was building cases. Now we got pretty clear statements that there isn't evidence to bring future cases on third parties. But if you look at the original 2019 indictment, it says dozens of victims. This is from Ken Klippenstein. But the Epstein review says over 1,000 victims. So what happened, guys? And by the way, in the interim, they also increased the number to 200 to 250.
200 victims, 200. So we have well over 250 actually.
So we went from dozens to 200 to over 1,000 in the span of basically a year in terms of victims. We like 10x the number of victims, but now there's no perpetrators. Like the perpetrators have been reduced. That is the crazy thing about what they're implying here, what this lone trafficker theory is pushing forward. It's also strange because previously Epstein in a court filing is said to have provided information to the FBI as agreed upon. Case agent advised that no federal prosecution will occur in this matter as long as Epstein continues to uphold his agreement with the state of Florida. So apparently there was some deal where Epstein was providing information to the FBI. What information? We don't know because no one else was involved. There's also the simple fact that if you go to the FBI records, what they call the vault, most of the files are just heavily redacted. So the idea that we got some transparency wave is literally a joke. Yes, it is true. There's no Epstein list where there's like names written down, but names exist in documents, on videos, in images, and they're all redacted. What's going on here? They're going to say, oh, it's all for the victims, right? But it's not all victim names. In addition to that, this lone trafficker theory is already on shaky grounds when you think about Prince Andrew's settlement with Virginia Giuffre, where he paid $16 million to make civil sexual assault allegations go away. Now, of course, it's worth saying that he did not admit to guilt. This was a settlement, but that is what you're always going to have with these rich and powerful
for just
people.
a second, because I think that's important, and there's not something that he said that I've disagreed with, so far. In the case of Prince Andrew and Virginia Giuffre, she's very prominent, probably one of the most prominent victims, and she's the one that recently committed suicide. Okay? Right. With that being said, does it mean you're guilty or not guilty if you settle? I've been involved in situations like that too.
Yeah.
Where it wasn't up to me. It was up to an insurance company that wanted to settle, and I had no choice in the matter, unless I wanted to foot a very big bill. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Versus just letting something just go
Get settled.
away.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I get that.
Yeah, because out of my whole career, I had one time that I was accused in the financial business of not doing the right things with a client's money. And it was like, dude, we had Disney stock in her portfolio. Okay. I didn't buy her like a penny stock and she lost all of her money.
Yeah.
The truth is, she spent a lot of money and wasn't realizing it. And I was having her difficulty getting her to slow down with her spending, kind of thing. But anyways, there was an accusation and it's taken seriously, you know. But I think it was like 10 grand or some small amount that they settled for. And like, what am I gonna do? You know what I mean? So that's a tough one. But it does seem like with other evidence and things we've seen with Prince Andrew, yeah, he was doing it, right?
Yeah.
And then there were other girls, I think, that said that they were with him specifically too, right? Yeah. So but I will say this about her, okay? She was not perfect. She was not a perfect witness. She also accused Alan Dershowitz. Okay, big time. Alan Dershowitz was also an OJ attorney.
Oh, wow.
But he's one of the most. He's
controversial.
No,
No,
I don't think he. Well, he gets involved in controversies, but he has been a top attorney for decades now, and he used to lean. It used to be like you felt like he leaned more Democrat, and I believe he graduated from Harvard and then was even taught law at Harvard as well.
Wow.
So he's pretty much respected by both sides. This is not somebody that people like,
he's on one side or the other.
But he's a good attorney.
Gotcha.
Like he's a really, really good attorney. And over the years, I've gained a lot more respect for him over the years.
Mm-hmm.
He was accused and he didn't care what it was going to take. He fought it. And it didn't even go to trial, and he didn't settle. It was dropped.
Gotcha.
And her statement was she might have, confused him for somebody else or, misunderstood or they thought there was some other reason going on. But he has said, even today,
mm-hmm.
everybody should have to do what you don't like having to defend yourself when you're innocent. But what he said is it should all be released. And some people names are going to be in there that didn't do anything wrong and that they should have to do just what he did, clear himself.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I'm saying?
No, I get you.
Like that, yeah. So I'm just putting it out there about Virginia that, in the one case, true, dead on, it seems like, with Prince Andrew.
Yeah.
But it's somebody else that was accused by her. It was not a thing. And, when things are stretched over decades, because now we're into the decade 3 of this shit, right? So 20-some years, yeah, it makes it harder to prove things and to get accurate information and that kind of stuff. But I just wanted to put that out there since he's talking about her. But so far, I think, I agree. That's why I want the information too.
People. In the same way, you also have Leon Black, who reportedly paid $158 million over 5 years to Jeffrey Epstein for tax advice. And guess what? Leon Black, billionaire, also paid the U.S. Virgin Islands $62 million in cash as part of a settlement, a non-prosecution, where they wouldn't go after him for anything from, quote, any and all claims of any nature whatsoever, specifically related to Jeffrey Epstein. It's worth noting that $15 million of this cash payment will be going to counseling programs and activities or mental health services. You also have Jess Staley, the former boss of Barclays. He directly admitted to having sex with a member of Epstein's staff, which you would expect if someone was running a trafficking operation. Although, I just have to say that there was a statement that this was entirely consensual, and I'm not saying anything about that. I'm simply saying the idea that Epstein was just trafficking for himself is unlikely to be true, in my opinion. Later, Staley wrote to Epstein, "Say hi to Snow White." Epstein replied, "What character would you like next?" Staley responded, "Beauty and the Beast." And then Jeffrey Epstein said, well, one side is available. Obviously, some type of coded message. You can read into that for yourself. But all of this is public. That's what I'm trying to say. That's what makes the government's memo so infuriating, is so much reporting has already been done. These settlements with powerful figures under denials, yes, but also under very questionable circumstances, make just a complete denial and statement that all of this was just Epstein impossible to believe. In September 2009, Epstein also emailed a woman named Irina to tell her that Jess Staley is staying in the Berkeley Hotel in London tonight. Staley emailed Epstein the next day to say, I should have taken your offer, according to the Times. There's also this book by one of the 60 Minutes correspondents called A Ticking Clock, where he says that he met with Ghislaine Maxwell, and he said, I want the tapes, I said to Maxwell at a table at Regency Bar. I know he was videotaping everyone. I want the tape of Trump with the girls. She didn't deny the existence of the tapes, but said, I don't know where they are. He apparently replied, ask Epstein, and she gave him a stern look and pointed a finger at my face. I'm the daughter of a press baron. I know the way you people think. If you do one side, you must do the other. If you get tapes on Trump, you have to do Clinton. Now, again, what you make of a third-hand source like this, talking to Ghislaine Maxwell, who apparently doesn't deny that some of these tapes exist, was she even telling the truth or just playing some game? Either way, this was all known about, not just by people after the fact, but allegedly by people during the fact. This is from Mark Epstein. It's sourced from Jeffrey Epstein. Quote, if I said what I know about both candidates, they'd have to cancel the election. That's what Jeffrey told me in 2016. So not even Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell allegedly were claiming this was all just between them. They were constantly insinuating that there were compromising things on various powerful people. What's funny is that Trump himself, even before he was in a position to declassify this stuff, had accused other powerful people of doing these things.
Bill Clinton.
Nice guy. Got a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion, with the famous island with Jeffrey Epstein.
That island was really a cesspool. There's no question about it. Just ask Prince Andrew.
You also have the fact that Jeffrey Epstein was in touch with other convicted pedophiles. Larry Nassar, he was writing letters. So the idea, once again, that he was just by himself, off by himself, doing things on his island by himself, and then taking calls with people like Bill Gates simply for philanthropic advice, really pushes the bounds of belief. Don't forget, a close associate of Bill Gates was named a fallback executor on the will of Jeffrey Epstein, which he, by the way, said he was shocked by and he deeply regrets meeting Epstein. Bill Gates has said similar things to that effect. Of course, Bill Gates fraternized with Epstein after he was convicted of crimes. Previously, he told the Wall Street Journal, I didn't have any business relationship or friendship with him. But in fact, he met multiple times with him at his Manhattan townhouse. Now, once again, I have to say real quick, all of these people are innocent until proven guilty. All of them deny doing anything untoward. But my point is, there are already too many associations to make the lone trafficker theory make any sense. For example, Jean-Luc Brunel was somebody who apparently trafficked a bunch of people to Epstein, who himself abused a bunch of women and even was charged for it. He was charged for some really awful things.
A lot of people dying in prison, huh? Did you see that? This dude was found dead in jail.
This guy? I'm not surprised.
This Jean-Luc, yeah, like, that's what I'm saying. A lot of people dying in jail.
Charged for it. He was charged for some really awful things and then later found dead in his cell. Interestingly, Epstein was actually a financier of Brunel's modeling agency where a lot of this alleged abuse happened. So once again, the idea of the lone trafficker just doesn't make sense because Epstein's directly linked to another guy who was also abusing women. So after all of this, they're really asking you to believe the unbelievable. They're asking you to not believe what they've said about this case, both out of office and now in power. They're asking you to not believe public reporting linking Epstein to other known pedophiles. They're asking you not to believe suspicious circumstances regarding settlements of powerful people. They're asking you to believe that Epstein was just the greatest tax advisor and financial advisor on the planet. that all of these billionaires needed to consult, despite the fact that there are entire organizations built around providing the same services as this without the, links to crimes. They're asking you to believe that when people are talking about Snow White and Beauty and the Beast, they're referencing Disneyland. And they're especially asking you to believe that they have found 900 new victims since reviewing these files and exactly 0 new perpetrators. So I'm just not buying it personally. I find it insulting to the intelligence of every single person who's ever looked at this story. And yeah, it really makes me feel like this was a appropriate time to launch a crime is legal merch collection, to be honest. So yeah, this is probably my last video on this for a while, but just disgusting.
Yeah, I honestly didn't. You heard me. How many times I interrupt, really? I didn't. I want to know, do I believe that there weren't, I believe there were perpetrators. There were Johns or whatever. I don't know what you call them, when there's other pedophiles. And that was a part of this. They talked about Leon Black, but probably the one that funded Epstein the most was Les Wexner. He was the one that owned the Limited and some other retail brands.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So.
And then, I'm not sure if we have the time if you'd like to, but this is the one that I recently watched because a lot of people are saying whether or not Trump is trying to hide or push down the files. This video, he did a really good job of explaining, or at least pulling up information because we don't know whether it's true or not.
Right.
That he said that multiple times. But it'd be hard to argue against the fact with the information we have. This one is specifically about Trump recently trying to bury the Epstein whole situation. So I'm not sure if you'd want to listen to him talk about that for 10 minutes.
Yeah. Fire it up.
Cool.
We'll roll.
The president of the United States is trying to cover the Epstein story. It's the double down right here on Truth Social. A big post saying that actually it's the Democrats who wrote the Epstein files. This is just after Elon Musk, who worked with Trump for many months, said that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That's the real reason they have not been made public. Obviously, we've already seen deflections from the president about Epstein, saying that it's a disgrace to talk about him.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? It just seems like a desecration.
But today, it goes a step further. Quick context. There's been a lot of infighting in the Republican Party over basically who's at fault for the giant botch of the Epstein files, with the majority of Republicans not wanting to believe that Trump himself was against a full release, but rather that he was sort of tricked into not releasing the Epstein files by one of his lackeys. But today, Donald Trump came out and basically backed Pam Bondi, saying they're all going after Pam Bondi, who's doing a fantastic job all over a guy who never dies, Jeffrey Epstein. For years, it's Epstein over and over again. Why are we giving publicity to files written by Democrats who conned the world with the Russia hoax? They created the Epstein files just like they created the fake Hillary Clinton Steele dossier. Now, this is such a smokescreen and a deflection. This is not a left versus right issue. Epstein never has been. It's the people versus the predators, not left versus right. The people versus the pedophiles, the people versus the people on planes. There ain't no left versus right here. In fact, some of the people...
I do want to stop there.
Yeah.
It's not just the people versus the predators. Okay, we are so divided as a country that absolutely the left wants to use this against the right, and the right would like to use it against the left. And it may be impossible that and probably it's not even probable that only one side was involved.
Yeah.
So you have both sides involved. But to say that, one side doesn't, both sides want to use it to hurt the other side.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And if that wasn't true, then Democrats wouldn't be saying on X, we'll give up Clinton if he's in there. We don't care. take him down, prosecute him, arrest him. Are you then asking us, Trump supporters, are you willing to do the same? And yeah, actually, I am. We have lines, and that is a line. If there was that kind of evidence, absolutely, I'd want it to be revealed. And yeah, I would renounce that, and it would be like, yeah, he's done a bunch of other great things, but this one is a deal breaker for me, and I think it is for most of us. So but again, both sides want to use it against each other.
Oh yeah, that for sure. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Who want this the most are people on the right, even on Truth Social. Obviously, a hugely Trump-favored place. Everybody is saying, no, this is unacceptable. You have to release the files. Later in the post, Trump also says that these are radical left-inspired documents and to not waste time and energy on Jeffrey Epstein, somebody that nobody cares about. But actually, we all do care about it. You know who doesn't actually want this out? The elites. That's why they've never done it. That's why it was a compelling pitch when Donald Trump hinted to his base that maybe he was going to release the files. People largely didn't trust the job that Biden had done. That's why it was a compelling story. So the idea now that it was Biden and Obama who invented the Epstein files is absolutely preposterous. They don't want that out either. And maybe that's because, as a producer of 60 Minutes alleged, Ghislaine Maxwell implied that there were tapes on Trump and also tapes on Clinton. You know who else said it? Mark Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein's brother, saying Epstein said, what I know about both candidates, the 2016 election would have to be canceled. So this whole idea that this is a left or right thing, it's not. It's the elites. Anybody who was on that plane, anybody who was associated with Epstein, seen with Epstein, even if they did nothing wrong, they don't want that out. Everyone who wasn't seen with Epstein, wasn't on that plane, of course they all want the files out. And what's interesting is obviously the Trump administration has sort of played footsie with this idea for a long time, playing to their base. They know this is a big issue. They had the influencers stand out there with a bunch of released material. But we also showed clips of Donald Trump implying that maybe Bill Clinton and Prince Andrew were doing bad things on the island.
Bill Clinton. Got a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion, with the famous island.
That island was really a cesspool. There's no question about it. Just ask Prince Andrew.
So consistently, Trump has hinted that maybe these guys were involved with Epstein, maybe it was bad, but turns out all these guys knew each other and knew Epstein. We know this in part from a Piers Morgan interview where he talks to a lady who went to a dinner party with Trump, Clinton, Epstein, and Prince Andrew.
Extraordinary collection of very high-powered people. How did they all interact with Epstein? How did Trump, Clinton, and Prince Andrew interact with him?
Everyone was very, very pally with him. You know, it was like there was a close bonds. You could see that.
So these guys knew each other, apparently had dinner parties together, all of them together. Trump later accuses two of the guys of doing bad things. And then when we release the files, can we release the files? Well, no, actually, no, we can't do that. Nobody cares about that. The reason why seems obvious. Epstein knew Prince Andrew. Yes. He knew Bill Clinton. Yes. But he also knew Donald Trump. And recently, tapes were released of Epstein talking and calling Donald Trump his closest friend.
So how do you know this? Donald's closest friend.
So it makes intuitive sense to distance yourself from files that may or may not have your name in it, and even distance yourself from the people involved. It's worth stating Trump actually denied knowing Prince Andrew.
I don't know Prince Andrew.
Of course, this was immediately debunked by photos showing the two together. And of course, showing that they clearly knew each other as of 2000. Now, the reason you would deny knowing Prince Andrew, even though you did, is obvious. At the time, he was facing allegations related to Epstein. By the way, allegations that now are basically over. Prince Andrew is very happy about us dropping the Epstein probe. A source for The Sun said he's only been abroad once since the scandal erupted.
Okay,
Prince Andrew has always been very...
there for a second. I'd want more information about that, the way he talks about Prince Andrew and President Trump. A couple of pictures, me having is the question, do you know who Prince Andrew is? Or do you know Prince Andrew like as a friend? You know, are there phone records where, like, have they ever talked on the phone like friends would talk on the phone? Or is it just you're at a wedding and he's the prince and you say you're engaged for a couple minutes and you're working the room and you're going around the room?
But they
kind
just,
of thing.
They just said that they would constantly like have dinners together, like all 5 of them.
Well, but there's there's not just those 5 though.
No, that's
there's no. That's not. But I'm saying that he may have said that, but that's not. But you can see by the things that he's showing, there's 100 fucking people there, dude. These are big events.
Okay.
I'm just saying it's not just, hey, you and I are going out, double date, and you bring your girl, I'll bring mine, and we'll go out to eat, or you come over to my house, and there's going to be 4 other couples, and it's going to be a small party. These are all bigger events, and I'm just saying that we need to define what it is more, as far as knowing somebody or saying you know them in that way, that as a friend. Yeah. Do I know who he is? Yeah. I know who Prince Andrew is, but I'm not in a picture with him, but then there would be that next level where, yeah, I got invited with a friend who was a senator, and I went with him to a party that was held in Washington, D.C., and Prince Andrew was there. I got to shake his hand, but I still don't know him. You know what I mean? I got to have a couple words with him or a couple sentences. That's what I want to know. You know what I'm saying?
I get you.
Okay.
Related to Epstein. By the way, allegations that now are basically over. Prince Andrew is very abroad once since the scandal erupted. Prince Andrew has always been very nervous about going abroad and always looking over his shoulder, as he should be, in my opinion. But now he's very happy because the guy who never met him but was photographed with him in 2000 just ended the investigation. Now, I have to say, Trump's been pretty consistent on the fact he has no interest in releasing the Epstein files in full. He said this multiple times. The reason most people have sort of a false memory of this, the reason it's sort of a Mandela effect that he campaigned on the idea of releasing the Epstein files, is because Fox News released a deceptively edited clip where they cut out the part where he said, yeah, I'll probably release the Epstein files. And they cut out the part where then he backtracks on that completely.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
And that's the part most of us saw. Of course, later, people found out that the full clip showed him saying basically the opposite.
Yes, I would. I think that less so because, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there, because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world.
We also have Bill O'Reilly on News Nation saying he just talked to Trump back on St. Patrick's Day, and Trump basically said the same thing.
He said, and I agree, there are a lot of names associated with Epstein that had nothing to do with Epstein's conduct. They maybe had lunch with him or maybe had some correspondence for one thing or another. If that name gets out, those people are destroyed because there's not going to be any context. Media doesn't care about context. So you can't do that.
So over
and that's
and over,
just what I just said about Alan Dershowitz.
Yeah.
Just exactly that obviously there's going to be people that were on that plane that never went to Epstein Island or that had some kind of contact with him, because people that do these things lead 2 different lives. They have the life that most people know about, and then they have this other life that a handful of people know about and might be also then involved in. And yes, it sucks that would happen, but I think it's so important to get these people that I agree with Alan Dershowitz. He went through it being accused, and he's still on TV. He's not destroyed. It was not a fun thing, I'm sure, for him to be able to go through. I don't know what it would do to other people who maybe don't have the means, if there are some of those people, to be able to fight that or accusations. And I think it is correct what Bill O'Reilly is saying. I don't disagree with Bill that there's a lot of people that just are going to be named and nobody's going to care other than that they were named, and people are going to smear them. And that's not right, and that would happen. But I still think it's worth it for the real information, and you just have to suck it up like Alan Dershowitz did and prove that it's not the case. And Alan was able to do that because it was said that he was with maybe her or whatever on a certain date at such a location, New York, whatever it was, Florida, wherever. And he was actually in London or whatever. He was in a totally different place and had proof, receipts that he flew and was in these people and had a speaking engagement. They got video of him speaking on a stage. He was able to prove that stuff being said on those days was wrong, and that's why it was dropped. And it, like I said, it sucks that people would have to do that. And, I can understand that that's maybe why people have held back from doing this, but there is just, we have just reached a point after decades now, This goes back a long way. And probably, I would say, I don't know if it goes before the 60s, but I'll say the 60s and the Vietnam War, where people trusted the news media, they trusted Walter Cronkite, and they trusted their government, and then the government lied to them about the Vietnam War, and then it just continued on from there. The lies, Watergate, just, Reagan was great, but, we also had a scandal during that as well, Iran-Contra. I don't really care that they did something illegal. we were funding these like rebels, and the government stopped, and it's like, oh, what do we do? And they found another way to fund them, what they were already doing. It just the trust. And then, I trusted that there were weapons of mass destruction. Just the lies. And this is just where we're at now. This is just where we're at. This is the case. That people finally said enough is enough. This is sickening. We're not for this. This is actually, like I said, this is why we wanted the one of the main reasons we wanted to shut the border down, because we don't want people being trafficked. We don't want people ending up in the back of semi-trailers dying because coyotes just took their money and left them there. We care about those lives. We care about the girls that are being impregnated as they come across the country to get here, being trafficked then in this country by the cartels. We care about that stuff. It's just absolutely horrendous. And this is just as horrendous as that. And we care, and we're drawing the line here. We do not trust the government. We didn't believe the results of the 2020 election. Guess what? The Democrats didn't believe the results of the 2016 election. And if you get back on X right now, you'll see they don't believe the results of the 2024 election. But it was only wrong for us to make accusations about the elections. Democrats are allowed to, apparently. But I'm just saying both sides have questioned the results of the election. There's no trust. Zero trust. That's where. So this is what you have to do to get that trust back.
The same answer from the president, not the fact that, oh no, the Epstein files, it's a lefty conspiracy. No, actually, it's the worry that people in the files are going to have their lives destroyed by the files. That sounds a lot more like covering for the people in the files than it does covering the victims. We've heard Kash Patel and Pam Bondi talk about, oh, we got to protect the victims.
Go through it very cautiously to protect all the victims.
We're not going to re-victimize women. We're not going to put that back out there.
But when we actually hear the president talk about it, and the real reason, right, because he's ultimately the decision maker on whether this gets released, what the real reason is cited is not about victims. It is about the people, the names in the thing. So I find it disgusting. They're using the victims of Epstein as a shield for the people who are actually in these files. Now, of course, who specifically is he worried about? Well, maybe it's his friends. Maybe it's people he has dinner parties with. And of course, maybe it's him, Donald Trump, that he's worried about. The journalist Michael Wolff actually quotes Steve Bannon as saying Jeffrey Epstein was really feared in 2016 for what he knew.
I was there, and it was that moment. And Bannon said to Epstein, and he said this in a good humor. He said during the campaign, it would be the 2016 campaign, you, meaning Jeffrey Epstein, were the only person I was afraid of.
So that is 3 independent sources. You've got the Ira Rosen quote, the Michael Wolff quote, and that Mark Epstein quote, all saying that there is some type of damaging information on Trump. 2 of those people specifically implying that it's also on Clinton as well. You also have the Elon Musk allegation from left field, but he doesn't source anybody, so we won't count that. Either way, I must say, I don't know for sure if Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, Donald Trump were heavily involved in anything nefarious or not. That is exactly why we should all demand that we open these files. But the possibility of both Democrats and Republicans being implicated in some of these files, whether they did it or not, or just knew him, may give a plausible reason for why the Epstein files have been heavily redacted this whole time. There are very powerful people involved. We've known that. The reason we've been given, of course, is that, we've got to protect the victims. The real reason behind the scenes is really they're protecting the powerful people. Now, the most charitable interpretation is, as Bill O'Reilly said, it's because those people would have their lives ruined. They had nothing to do with Epstein, but we know some of them probably did. We know this from the Miami Herald because the FBI agents who searched Epstein's house found a cache of thick black binders all labeled with names that contained hundreds of naked or semi-naked photographs on CDs that Epstein stored in various places. The labels on the binders were redacted from photos because prosecutors said they were names of third parties who were not relevant to the case they are mounting against Ghislaine Maxwell. So my question is, are those some of the third parties? Their names are on binders with a bunch of explicit photos. Maybe it's people he has dinner parties with. And of course, maybe it's him, Donald Trump, that he's worried about. The journalist Michael Wolff actually quotes Steve Bannon as saying Jeffrey Epstein was really feared in 2016 for what he knew.
I was there, and it was that moment. And Bannon said to Epstein, and he said this in a good humor. He said during the campaign, it would be the 2016 campaign, you, meaning Jeffrey Epstein, were the only person I was afraid of.
So that is 3 independent sources. You've got the Ira Rosen quote, the Michael Wolff quote, and that Mark Epstein quote, all saying that there is some type of damaging information on Trump. 2 of those people specifically implying that it's also on Clinton as well. You also have the Elon Musk allegation from left field, but he doesn't source anybody, so we won't count that. Either way, I must say, I don't know for sure if Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, Donald Trump were heavily involved in anything nefarious or not. That is exactly why we should all demand that we open these files. But the possibility of both Democrats and Republicans being implicated in some of these files, whether they did it or not, or just knew him, may give a plausible reason for why the Epstein files have been heavily redacted this whole time. There are very powerful people involved. We've known that. The reason we've been given, of course, is that, we've got to protect the victims. The real reason behind the scenes is really they're protecting the powerful people. Now, the most charitable interpretation is, as Bill O'Reilly said, it's because those people would have their lives ruined. They had nothing to do with Epstein, but we know some of them probably did. We know this from the Miami Herald because the FBI agents who searched Epstein's house found a cache of thick black binders all labeled with names that contained hundreds of naked or semi-naked photographs on CDs that Epstein stored in various places. The labels on the binders were redacted from photos because prosecutors said they were names of third parties who were not relevant to the case they are mounting against Ghislaine Maxwell. So my question is, are those some of the third parties? Their names are on binders with a bunch of explicit photographs that Epstein was storing? That seems like something we should be investigating. Or what about the fact that since the FBI is saying there's no blackmail involved with Jeffrey Epstein, we investigate the Wall Street Journal report that Jeffrey Epstein allegedly tried to extort Bill Gates over an extramarital affair, because I thought there was no blackmail involved. And my real plea to people is to not allow comments like this, these statements about partisan politics, to trick you into thinking this is some type of left versus right issue. That is the Trump play right now. I don't think it's going to work. I think it's a disaster. I think it's very stupid. I think people on the right are just as interested as people on the left. I think this is a universal issue, as it should be. If there are predators in the highest offices in the land, be they Democrat or Republican, we want to know about it.
Yeah, we want to know about it. I do think that people on the right, again,
let's kick things off with
that we do want to know more about it and have wanted to know more about it for far longer than anybody on the left. It's just been an issue for us for a very, very long time. I think it's also fair to say, you know, that it very well could be probable, as he mentioned, that the cover up, let's say it's 80-20, because most things are 80-20. Everything in life is 80-20, right? So you have 100 people on this list. 80 people, you know, had contact with, of those 100 had contact with Epstein, but were not involved in anything nefarious. And then 20 of the 100 people did have something nefarious. And are they doing it to protect the 20? Is this not being released to protect those 20 people or possibly yourself? Or is it being done to protect the 80? I believe it absolutely could be probable, or just as probable, to be doing it to protect that 80. But although that seems like a good excuse, it's still an excuse. It's still an excuse. That's how I operate. I operate in the realm of, you may have a good excuse. It may be totally good. Still an excuse. And it's a reason, but it's not a good enough one to keep it. And that these 80 people, I'm sorry, are going to have to defend themselves and maybe get a small tarnish on themselves slightly to make sure that we get these other 20. We want those 20. Well, I totally agree. This whole idea that it was just Epstein and there's no one else and no one else is being taken down with this besides the Prince Andrew is, and Prince Andrew, it's just money, right? It's just money. He's not in jail, right? It's just civil. Yeah, I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with that. And I don't think most people are okay with that. And I do agree, and I've said right from the beginning, they handled this all wrong. That if they really, the best way to handle this, because again, who brought all this back up? I can't even blame the Democrats for that. We did. Republicans brought this back up in the last 6 months, especially since Trump got back into office. We brought it up. So it is what it is. They should have downplayed it. They should have downplayed it from the very beginning. And that certainly didn't help Trump, that people took clips, and it was Fox News. So to think that Fox News is always Trump's friend is not true. Because they're also the ones that Trump is suing now too, is Murdoch and Fox News and the Wall Street Journal. So over what I was telling you about that birthday card thing, gotcha. Okay, that's what that lawsuit is about. So Trump is suing about that. So, yeah, it should have been, I'm not saying it would have been right thing to do, but it wouldn't be the issue it's become today if when we were bringing it up, it had been downplayed then, if my Justice Department decides that there's reason for them to continue this investigation or dig deeper, that's on them. I don't control the Justice Department, and whatever happens. But I got more important things that I'm dealing with right now. But he could have done that from day one, and that could have been the message of the entire administration, and we wouldn't be here now. But we are here now. It has been stoked. And yes, it's being stoked by Democrats now, but we don't care about them stoking it. We just think they're hypocrites for stoking it. We are the ones that wanted this. People who voted for Trump aren't pieces of shit who love pedophiles. That's just, you can stick that shit up your motherfucking ass. Okay. And if you said that shit to my face, you'd be laying on the ground and you'd probably have a boot print on your motherfucking forehead. Okay. Because you don't get to talk to me like that. Not at all. That is not who the fuck I am. And you don't get to accuse me of being that, because I'm not. Okay. I'm an American first. I'm an American patriot first. And again, I'll say this over and over until you people fucking get it. I was motherfucking MAGA before Trump. Trump didn't create us. Trump didn't create MAGA. MAGA had been building for a number of years, going back to Reagan. We're the ones that were tired of the elites in both parties, including our own. We're the ones that fell for and believed Bush and the neocons and all those people and defended them, and they betrayed us. And since that time, we're like, fuck them. We took the party out of their hands, and now they're all whining because it's like a cesspool in Washington, D.C. The further you get into it and whose brother works for who and whose daughter is in this department now, dude, I find out shit every day because I do serious deep dives, and very few of you are doing the deep dives that I'm back to doing. You're just not doing it, and it's overwhelming. But I do it anyways to be as informed as I can when I turn on this microphone for the 3 motherfuckers listening. That's what I do. And because I care. And I care about the fucking country. But this bullshit, like, I'm not going to tolerate that. You don't get to smear me like that. You could stick that in your fucking ass, man. And if you ever see me, I'll probably be wearing a Trump hat until otherwise noted. Okay? You will know that the day that I abandoned Trump. Now, I made a post answering the exact same post that he showed in his video on the Truth Social. That was the one we did the other day when we showed my response. The truth that he showed that Trump had that he was bitching about. That's the one I posted about that on Truth Social as well as other places. I responded to that knowing that Trump wasn't going to see my response, but I was putting myself on the record of how I felt about this. Okay. And look, I'm not gonna deny legitimate, real evidence. We don't have that yet that implicates Trump as being a pedophile and doing this shit with young girls, underage. You know, to me, if they're under 18, I'm not talking about 14. I'm talking about even 17. It's not acceptable. Okay? It's not acceptable. And I don't know too many conservatives that would say that it is, or would say if there was real evidence of that they would continue to support him at that point. So if you want to know if we would continue, no. But guess what? Guess what, though, motherfuckers? We still feel how we feel about the government and you and what you've been doing to this country. You've been trying for years to get rid of Trump. Do you know who you're not getting rid of? MAGA. The people who want to make America great again, who believe in the opportunity that we have here and love this country and are tired of people bashing it. Yeah, dude, yeah. It's like, think of it like this. My brother is not a perfect person. He's not. He's not a perfect person, but he's got a good heart. And you don't get to bash my brother. You don't get to do it. He's done a bunch of really good things. You don't get to just bash my brother because he's not perfect. And that's how we are as a country. We're not perfect. But we do try to fix shit, and sometimes it takes us a while, even decades to fix. But we actually do. More than any other country in the world. Nobody else tries to fix the shit like we do here. So, and what's the purpose of just bad-mouthing constantly, all the time, hating your fucking country? Hate your government. Love your country. That's my message. Very good with the videos. Nice job with
those
that.
are gonna be.
We might keep going.
Those are gonna be.
And too bad I'm going to be gone on Friday, Monday, because I would like to. I'd like to play a couple of the videos I have.
That'd be
So, like, maybe we'll do that next week.
Yeah, that works for
We
me.
might do that next Wednesday if the issue is. And I expect the issue to be
still gonna
the
be around.
same
It's still gonna
today
be
as
around.
is,
Oh, yeah.
unless something else is released. And I got off of the treason, which is to me is still just as important as this. Treason, trying to overthrow a government from the inside. You all motherfuckers are talking about one day on January 6th. They've been trying to overthrow the government for 10 fucking years, and it started with Trump. And they even did it to their own person. They did it to Biden. That was a coup, dude. I repeat it to these motherfuckers all the time that want to, oh, I miss Biden. Miss him? Motherfucker, you're the one that kicked him out. He was the one who, however the nomination process is rigged to some degree, all right? But anyways, he was the one. If you wanted to challenge him and run in the primaries against him, you had an opportunity to do so. And I think there's one, I don't even remember who the one person was that ran that nobody could even tell you his name because it was some nobody, you know what I mean? Like, nobody. But he's the one that got the votes. Kamala never got a single vote in a primary in 2016, and she didn't get a motherfucking vote into 2024 either, or 2023 to 24. She didn't get a single fucking vote in a primary. It was given to her after they stabbed Biden in the back after he won the Democratic nomination. He won. He was the guy a second time around. It doesn't matter that he said he was only going to be one term and done. And you can be mad that he didn't follow through with that promise. But again, we didn't get rid of him. You did, because you thought that he wouldn't be able to beat Trump. So you got rid of him and then named your DEI person because she was qualified how? Because she was vice president? Well, if she was vice president, why couldn't they have done some short primary? Why couldn't they have done a one-day primary across the country? Same day, everybody vote across the country and figure out, and you have 4 candidates for the Democratic primary. Other people were being talked about. When the Biden stuff was going down, and there was the possibility of a very short primary, like redoing it, and people were, Gavin Newsom was talked about, Shapiro, the Pennsylvania governor, was talked about. A bunch of people were talked about. And then they quickly killed that when Biden endorsed her. Because remember, when she was first being talked about, guess what? Obama didn't endorse her right away. It was days later before Obama got on board. And then everybody else kind of fell in line. But it was given to her. She didn't get a vote. You people want to talk to me about a threat to democracy. Where's the democracy in the elites giving you your candidate? And now you want to tell me, oh, can you imagine where the country would be if Kamala was the president right now? Fuck off. Are you kidding me? You people didn't even want her. You didn't. And if you did, she would have won the election. Biden won. So obviously it was possible. Just wasn't possible for her. They didn't like her. And they didn't like her not because she was a woman, because nobody cares about that shit anymore. There's no way that anybody can tell me that it's not possible for a woman to become president. Because I don't hear, I can't, nobody in my circle says, you know what? I don't care if it's a Republican. I would never vote for a woman president. I'm not saying there aren't like people out there that say that. Yeah. I'm saying I've never heard it once. And I don't have a small circle. So it's not like a serious percentage of people. You're always going to have racist and sexist. You're always going to have that. You can't get rid of it. But I'm just saying nobody's Nobody is saying that, and especially on the Republican side. And in fact, we would love to have a Republican woman be the first president of the United States. That'd be a feather in our cap, because we know you're going to trash her, because you don't really support women. You only support liberal women. Well, guess what? We don't like liberal women, so we don't vote for them, just like you're not going to vote for a conservative woman. It's a thing. It's not about the gender. It's about that we don't like liberal policies. Not that we don't like the person because they happen to be a woman. And we can't say now that that it's not possible for someone who is a minority, black or otherwise, to be elected, because we have both as president and vice president. We've had both. So it is possible. Is it still maybe hard? Okay, I'll give you that. But it's possible. It's possible. And some people might say, well, Obama was really slick. He was a really good speaker. Almost everybody credits him as being a good speaker. Okay. He was. Then the other side has to deal with that. But people liked what they heard. Now, you may not feel that he didn't deliver on that. That's fair to say too. But a lot of people, I think there were a lot of people in the middle who leaned conservative, who did like what he said, and they weren't really tied to a particular party, and like the idea also of us finally breaking that barrier too, and voted for him. And then after that, it's a totally different issue. I'm just talking about being elected. So I don't know why I just got off on adding that, because we've gone really long today, but I don't care. It is what it is today. You had the time, I had the time, and it was fun. And like I said, I'm appreciative that you threw out those videos. That was fun to do too. I hadn't seen those before.
Keep an eye out on YouTube, because I will be making those into a reaction video. So those will be going up.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is too, that people should know is that, that's also me demonstrating I'm not afraid of motherfucking shit. I'm not afraid. I want more information. I want more good input. And if you do listen to, it's not about politics, but my other reaction videos, if I don't like something, I will say it. So if the parts that I wanted to add some context to, I don't even know if him and that dude and I were in a room, he would disagree with what I added. I'm kind of thinking he wouldn't. You know what I mean?
Maybe I'll send him a message, get him on the podcast.
You know what I'm saying? Because I think there's enough overlap there, but I did want to add the context that I did and how I'm looking at it. And I think it was important context. And it's hard to cover every base when you're doing what he's doing. Okay, so he did a great job. And if he missed something here or there, anybody would do that. Anybody would do that. But if you can get to 80-90% of it covered, which I think he did, that's all you can do, man. Because you're always going to think of something after the fact. I heard Officer Tatum talking about that in the video where he was interviewed.
That was another video I was going to upload for you.
And that he said, man, I wish I would have thought of this when I was being interviewed. And he even called, he even used the wrong name. He called the host, which was Stephen A. He called Stephen A. by Hughley, the comedian. They were talking about D.L. Hughley, the comedian. And he meant to say D.L. Hughley, and he used Stephen A. Smith. But people don't understand those kind of mistakes aren't because you're mentally declining, okay? Those kind of mental mistakes happen just because you do this so much, and you're just thinking and talking, and you're like, oh, I didn't mean that, and that's not the name, and you catch yourself, and sometimes you don't catch yourself till after, and the mistake is just out there and lives on, okay? I've done it because I've done radio for years and years and years. I know how that shit works. But yeah, I would, if he would talk to me, if he would bless me for an hour at a time, yeah, I'd love that. That would be cool. But I'm just saying, I don't just get information from one motherfucking side. I don't do that. That's not how you get information. That's not how you form good opinions. And I don't tell anybody that watches this that I'm doing the work for you and you should just take my opinion and adopt it as your own. I'm hoping that it encourages you to get more information, to hone your own opinion, and become more knowledgeable yourself. And that you do this, that inspires you to do that. But I do want to be a trusted source as someone who can break shit down and make it understandable. I do want that. But I would never say you should not do your own work too. That's not a thing. You should always do your own work. Okay? All right. That's what we have for today. Good show. Appreciate you, Leo.
I appreciate
this
you, man.
is the Outlaw Apostle Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Neff. I'm the fucking guy.
Beautiful. And then one in the stream there, but can I have you, because I'm going to make that into a clip. Can I have you just do like a little mini, like the ad, the mid ad or whatever? Like, hope you're enjoying this.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah.
You're listening to the Outlaw Apostle Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Neff. I'm the fucking guy. And if you are enjoying this, please do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Share this with someone else. Check out our reaction clips, too, and the other things that we're doing and adding to the program. We are going to be doing more interviews here and very, very soon that are going to be going up. Check those out as well. God bless. Have a great week.
Beautiful.